Chosen ones. The observation and surveillance operation that was being carried out on you without you even realizing it was a mere instruction. But the fear that was growing inside them shifted at the very moment they targeted you and turned their reality upside down. You feel this power every time you are confronted with the question of what is different about you. Revelation has already begun to take place, and they were caught off guard before they realized it. The elite agents programmed to detect and neutralize threats are shaken by your power. What keeps them awake is a power they cannot rationalize, but which they somehow sense in you. This power goes beyond their expectations, disrupts their plans, and makes them feel helpless. And now, in the face of this, are you still questioning your own abilities? Why would you choose to listen to their fears and diminish yourself? By subscribing to our channel, you ensure that God's light and knowledge will continue to come into your life and provide you with the daily guidance and encouragement you need. You do not fit into any mold they are trying to use. You are a variable that breaks all equations, an anomaly that shakes perception and distorts the system. They try to calculate your every step, but you do not fit into any formula. But your journey is just beginning. This vast potential is hidden in you. The reason why they fail in every attempt is precisely because they cannot analyze this potential. Whether they know it or not, you are their biggest fear and their biggest reality that they never take into account. So keep going, undaunted, because what they want to break is nothing but their own fear and sense of failure. Your path is illuminated by the light of being chosen. And remember, as long as they cannot define you, they cannot stop you. And that is what they fear the most. It is time to wake up, even if you are not aware of your own power. The city had settled into a routine where every move was watched and every oddity explained until something changed. It wasn't a glitch in their systems or a trick of the light. It was an unfathomable emergence, a being freed from constraints, a power that transcended the ordinary. Instead of flickering and fading like something manufactured, it rippled, rewriting the basic fabric of vision. The control sentinels, previously confident of their power, now stood as spectators of an inexplicable phenomenon. All protocols were suddenly broken. Sounds rippled before they could form commands. The surveillance tools could not make sense of what was happening. Everything had to fit into predefined categories according to the mechanism of power. But this event defied categorization itself. Eyes focused on a world that defied analysis. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment with the number 77 to send a powerful message to the universe that you are ready for your breakthrough. Was there an intervention, a discovery, or a clue that there was something they didn't have? Their discipline had taught them to resolve chaos and suppress turmoil. However, some forces need to be accepted rather than opposed. In the face of something that changed reality itself, their calculations, their expertise, or their laws were irrelevant. Because not everything is observable, explainable, or controllable. There are some entities that are not subject to scrutiny, authorization, or limitations. The world is governed by patterns, but they are not unchangeable. Some people interrupt the cycle just by being there. You become strong where others become weak. With your presence, the atmosphere changes. Expectations are shaken, and assurance is shattered. This is not philosophy or illusion, but a real change at the core of the vision. There will be attempts to justify it, to categorize it, to limit it to acceptable definitions, but none of these will succeed. You are neither a participant in the limitations placed upon you nor a product of the norm. This is inevitable. It is not a choice. To be light in a world that feeds on darkness is to be extraordinary, a disruption of the status quo. You will face suspicion, opposition, and attempts to discredit you by people who fear the unusual. This does not change reality. What exists cannot be eliminated by denying it. What must be accepted cannot be eliminated by refusing to accept it. Power never sits by doing nothing. It rejects neutrality, forces action, and demands movement. It is not a passive force waiting for approval to appear, but a spark that overcomes even the strongest obstacles. No appeasement, retreat, or compliance is expected. It involves cutting through the lies and exposing the hidden structures that allow deception to flourish. Although preparedness is never a necessity, the world is unprepared. The limitations of perception do not weaken, surrender, or succumb to this power. In the aftermath, systems based on certainty disintegrate. Instruments calibrated with predictability blink erratically. Structured data becomes useless noise, and readings become inconsistent. What those who rely on formulas, absolutes, and the ease of measurability create will eventually become irrelevant. They will call it noise, inconsistency, or a mechanical flaw. But the reality is much less favorable. It is not a mistake. Rather, it is indisputable proof that there are forces beyond their control. Science embraces motion, encodes waves, and recognizes energy. However, what emanates from this location cannot be documented or mapped within their field of study. It is neither the recognizable vibration of biological circuits, nor the sequential firing of neurons with a limited charge. Nor does it need the confirmation of the senses, which are used only to confirm what is already established. The tools of those who try to unravel it will be of no use. Mechanisms malfunction, signals are distorted, and the air itself buzzes with an unidentifiable resonance. By entering the 88, you can claim those benefits that will lead to more opportunities in your life, such as professional success, financial success, business success, health, and all the desires of your heart. This place was never designed to be studied. The weight of something unclassifiable causes definitions to shatter, formulas to fail, and every established boundary to dissolve. The force that changes reality itself cannot be explained by an equation. Even if no analysis will hold, ideas will develop and try to apply logic where logic does not exist. Its existence needs no authorization or approval. It is indisputable, unalterable, and beyond the limits of confinement. No barriers remain in place unless they are allowed to remain. Governed by an invisible and incomprehensible force, events unfold with precision. It is pointless to try to watch, follow, or predict. Just when they need clarity, calculations are miscalculated, and surveillance measures become erratic. They operate according to cycles, patterns, and the assumption that everything follows a certain rhythm. But what protects this entity does not fit their model. Disruption is a deliberate, precise defense, set in motion before the danger is even seen. It is not an accident. Even if they think they are observers, they do not realize that they are the ones being watched. Instead, the same mechanisms designed to monitor, reveal, and contain them crumble under their own weight. Signals dissolve into incomprehensible noise, surveillance equipment flickers with unpredictable failures, and efforts to locate a place are trapped in endless circles of misdirection. No algorithm improves the data, no lens clarifies the picture. With each decryption attempt, the distortion increases. There is no randomness in accuracy, but they will describe it as an unexpected failure or an unexplained anomaly. As they push harder, the limits of their reach swallow their tools and cause them to disintegrate faster. Nothing that was never intended to be limited succumbs to artificial control. Observed but inaccessible, indisputable but insurmountable, contradiction itself becomes an obstacle they cannot overcome. Techniques are recalculated and strategies developed, but no effort succeeds. The closer they get, the further away the target becomes. There are no weaknesses in what they are trying to penetrate, no fundamental breaks, no mistakes they can exploit. The defense is active, relentless, and an invisible force, working with an accuracy beyond their reach. Their power has no effect on what has already been initiated. Everything happens as it should. What looks like disruption is actually correction. What looks like interference is actually alignment. They fix their eyes on something they want to watch, control, or take away. But the act of seeing changes the observer rather than the subject. When something uncontrollable is present, reality bends, distorting vision, eroding trust, and revealing things that were never intended to be known. When they look within, they see their own weaknesses and limitations reflected back at them. Change begins the moment attention is drawn. Structures based on predictability begin to crumble when assumptions are broken. As they are scrutinized, their own foundations become more and more dangerous. Their devices malfunction, their insights escape them, and their confidence is shaken. What was once a rigid structure of logic now stretches, bends, and avoids definition. Some may withdraw, uncomfortable with something they cannot define. Others, desperate to provide something that does not fit the mold, will go after it. They came as observers, believing they were in charge. But now they are captive to something much bigger than themselves. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness cannot overcome it. John 12:30. Some people thought they could study the power in front of them, unaltered by it, and they thought they could look through the shadows. Light, on the other hand, cannot be seen from a distance. Light reveals, exposes, and changes. And the moment they turned to face it, they lost control. They came expecting a phenomenon to categorize, a difference to document, or a person to observe. But what happens when those who try to measure are finally put under the microscope? What happens when, through disclosure rather than coercion, the hunter becomes the hunted? Imagine walking into a room full of mirrors, expecting to see only what you choose to recognize, only to discover that the reflection is a reflection of what you are afraid to be rather than who you are. They are carrying this burden right now. In the past, their reports commanded accuracy, and their hardware had precision. But when the ink doesn't dry and the numbers change before the calculations are finished, it is impossible to write the truth. They believed they were ahead. They thought they could be protected by their antiseptic reasoning, procedures, and training. But how can you be ready for something that doesn't follow the rules? They believed they could observe without facing any repercussions, but the moment they saw you, something inside them broke. Their once steady hands now tremble. Their once dominant voice now trembles. What they saw was neither a trick of sight nor a flaw in their technology. The illusion of control on which they had built their lives had been shattered by something tangible and indisputable. They had dedicated their lives to destroying religion, to turning the unknown into probabilities and formulas. Now they stand in front of something that cannot be destroyed, minimized, or ignored. They call it a disturbance, an intervention, an anomaly. But deep down they realize that their perception of reality is flawed, not the environment around them. The fact that they are terrified, not of you, but of what your presence forces them to confront within themselves, is the truth they are reluctant to express. It was always an encounter, not a simple task. Their purpose was to investigate, record, and manage. Instead, they discovered that they were on the brink of something much bigger than they could have imagined. All they are left with are unanswered questions, unexplained recordings, and a silence that is higher than any warning they could have given. Even if they don't admit it, they are the ones marked by this event. They have entered into something they cannot leave unchanged. They came to watch, but they were the ones who were seen. Clarity is not possible from a distance. They wait for a trick, an illusion, or a mistake to excuse their uneasiness, but none materializes. The more they search for an answer, the further away they get from comprehension. Outside their equations, the atmosphere bends. The tools that once determined certainty now betray them with chaos. Their logic does not hold water on any level. They have been instructed that everything must have a source, but nothing they see can be linked to a source. They will strive to quantify, divide, and explain, but reality will not listen to their demands. Before it can be written down, every conclusion disappears, and nothing is left but silence. Beyond the veil of vision is a sheltered space where knowledge is limitless, a place where researchers are in tune with the invisible forces that shape life. Here, tactics emerge that defy conventional logic. Ancient wisdom is intertwined with hidden currents of power. In this field, mastery is a given rather than a desire. The rules of manifestation are altered, and reality itself is rebalanced through careful interactions. Will and creation come together as the appearance of separation disappears. For the attuned, the constraints of matter disappear, and only the sheer power of change remains. Every effort to rein in the uncontrollable fails. Every recording is tainted with anomalies, the data corrupted and the film erased. The idea that nothing can be captured is the basis of surveillance, but time itself resists. Reassured reports disappear without a trace. Frames disappear and sequences change. The more they try to maintain control, the more they lose it. They trusted their structures and believed in their systems. But when their own archives turn against them, and the evidence they had previously examined disappears, they are left with nothing but the weight of what they can no longer deny. Failure is planned. Disruption is deliberate. Every system they rely on works flawlessly until they turn their eyes on you. High-altitude surveillance struggles to interpret unexpected readings. Pulses of light appear when there is no artificial source, energy signatures of unknown origin appear, and measurements change for no reason. The evidence is indisputable, yet it insists on its own impossibility. They cross-reference, recalibrate, and analyze historical anomalies in an effort to discover a sense of stability in the familiar. But nothing compares to what they see. This event is unique to this moment and has not been seen anywhere else. Their reports become fragmented, different inconsistencies from a systematic study. When interpretations are made with confidence, hesitation sets in, statements change, and predictions fail. Consistency is necessary for control, but things that defy it cannot be stabilized. When a discovery disappears before it can be recorded, how will they record it? How can they make sense of results that contradict every fundamental principle? They refuse to define what their tools verify, so they avoid giving explicit references. But this no longer matters. There is nothing wrong with the pattern. Every step they take turns their structures upside down, leaving behind signs of change. Before understanding, consciousness stirs, atmospheres change, and space bends. Before comprehension, emotion remains, a wordless, indistinguishable awareness. Some pause because the lack of explanation makes them uneasy. Others search for order, trying to reason where there is no logic. They set out to observe, infer, and predict. However, they are now caught in a current beyond their control. They are the ones who are now under scrutiny because the research they started has turned against them. What disturbs them is not so much what they see, but the discoveries that challenge them. The cracks they ignored deepen. Their denial of the inexplicable becomes what breaks them. Their own senses deceive them, but they use doubt and skepticism as armor. The obvious is not distorted by any filter. They wanted to record, control, and exert authority over what should not be seen. Now they are trapped by their own control, unable to look away, but unable to face what stares back at them. Their education has conditioned them to break things down, to analyze them, and to transform the unknown into known factors. But no ready response is sufficient for things that do not submit to categorization. They keep their distance, expecting a delusion, a quirk in the environment, or a simple malfunction that they can ignore and move on. On the contrary, the opposite happens. Every assumption is wrong, and every attempt at justification fails. They cannot map the space they are measuring. The energy they try to measure disappears as their instruments rebel. For we walk by faith and not by sight. 2 Corinthians chapter 5:7. They believed they had mapped everything, explained every oddity, detected every force. But what happens when the inexplicable refuses to be quantified? They were betrayed by statistics. Logic broke down. Records erased themselves. Readings changed. They rechecked, reanalyzed, and recalibrated. There was nothing left. There was no precedent, no source, no model for what they were facing. It just was. They came armed with reassurance, skeptical. They left as something else. Some left unwilling to face reality. Others left without a sense that their world was invincible. There was no evidence, no argument. There was no obligation. Because light does not ask permission before it manifests itself. It just shines. Knowledge flows freely in a protected space, changing perspectives and breaking down barriers. This is a forge where the determined hone their resolve, not a refuge for the timid. The archive of mastery, the blueprints of manifestation woven with the principles of lost powers, is here for those who want to control the unseen. The benchmark has already been crossed. The environment changes, the mind changes, and what was thought to be impossible becomes the basis for ascent. This is more than just a speech. It is a revolution in thought, a discovery of invisible mechanics and a gateway to the extraordinary. There is no mistake behind this destruction. Failure is not an accident. Their systems work flawlessly until they encounter the unknown. They can't correlate the oscillations recorded by the high-altitude scans. Light appears when no source is recorded, and the bursts of energy are difficult to categorize. The readings are indisputable, even when they go against accepted science. Despite efforts to explain, compare, and correlate with precedents, no coherence has been discovered. Only where the presence is present does the anomaly manifest itself. Their findings change from organized analysis to illogical contradictions. Words change, trust is shaken, and those charged with containing it begin to weaken. The data defies order, but their framework insists on consistency. How do you explain results that disappear without scrutiny? How do they reconcile self-refuting reports? No official announcement is needed. The discomfort is obvious. There is no escape from the pattern. Expectation is broken by movement, perception wiggles in ways they cannot define, and silent awareness settles in before consciousness awakens. There is nothing hidden that will not be revealed, nothing hidden that will not be known and come to light. Luke 8:17 emphasis added. They believed they could remain hidden, unobserved and unaffected, observing without fear of repercussion. But light cannot be seen without revealing everything in its path. Though they came to study, they are now being studied. Like a man entering a dark room hoping to see without being seen, they thought they could hide behind their instruments and calculations. But the moment they targeted you, something changed. Their own fears, uncertainties, and limitations were reflected back by the inward gaze they believed belonged only to them. They came with rigid frameworks expecting control and organization. But how do you map the uncontrollable? How do you categorize what doesn't fit? The weight of something that challenges their understanding causes their path to be shaken. Their reports, once full of clarity, now become contradictory. Some people pause, caught between doubt and insight. Others cling frantically to the stories they have always been taught, trying to make sense where it no longer applies. They have been touched, but they want to see untouched. They have been changed, but they still want to examine unaffected. The lens has been bent, the balance has shifted. They are the ones being examined now, not you. Beneath an undeniably greater awareness, their intentions, their reactions, and their basic understanding of reality are emerging. Their discomfort comes not from what they see in you, but from what your presence reveals in them. The skepticism they cling to betrays them, and the flaws they previously ignored now grow. What is the worst of it? They cannot deny what their own senses confirm. They came to observe, examine, and control, but in the end they were captured. Their aim was to map, study, and restrict what should not be seen. But now they find themselves on the brink of their own destruction, caught between recognizing and observing, unable to see what is looking back at them. Doubt was their cover. Skepticism was their weapon. They were trained to dissect events and break the unknown into plausible pieces, to reduce the inexplicable to conjecture and delusion. But nothing they have prepared can explain a force that defies logic. They stand beyond their reach, waiting for an optical distortion, a quirk in the environment, or a calculation gone wrong to justify them. But the opposite happens. Each documented event further shatters their understanding. The very essence of what they are trying to investigate defies measurement, and their instruments malfunction. Their reasoning gives them no solid foundation on which to stand. They thought everything could be traced, and every result had a cause. But the source of what comes out of it does not fit their worldview. Despite their efforts to identify, measure, and reject it, it does not fit the real choice. All their findings lead to the same conclusion: silence, no clarity, no determination. Some give up, unable to accept what they see. Others are still there, but they have changed. The weight of a reality they can no longer deny has replaced the reassurance they brought with them. No defense was needed, no arguments were made, and no evidence was presented. Just being there was enough. The path to the unknown had never existed. The energy that flows through you does not wait for acceptance, does not conform to expectations, and does not surrender to comfort. It moves freely and unhindered, destroying all barriers put up to control the uncontrollable. You are a subversion they never expected, a force that shatters the illusion just by your presence. People who watch are eventually watched. Their systems break down, their calculations are upset, and their security evaporates in the face of something beyond their reach. You were never designed to work. On the contrary, you were designed to be recognized. This universe was created to hide, dilute, and rationalize the unquestionable. But you are beyond their understanding. You exceed their expectations by changing outcomes, subverting trends, and rewriting the limitations they have accepted. Some will resist, clinging to what remains of a building that has lost its ability to hold its shape. Others will awaken to the truth that no longer asks permission to be seen. It is not your obligation to guarantee their change or their recognition. All that is needed is presence, to remain unwavering, fearless, and unaffected by any force that seeks to weaken what cannot be eliminated. Speak out. Let it be known. Let the weight of truth fall upon the long-standing silence. Let those who have experienced it, who have seen the inexplicable and stood in the midst of the inexplicable, step forward. The period of silence is over. What has been hidden will no longer exist. If you enjoyed this inspiring adventure and would like to see more videos that challenge convention and explore the exceptional, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, share with your friends, and leave a comment below. Please share your thoughts with us. The story doesn't end here. Stay tuned for more. Let's keep pushing the boundaries together.